Welcome to Tara Juno Painting Stuff. I'm Tara Juno. I am wearing this outfit to do a self-portrait. In this video, we're going to be creating preparatory drawings for a self-portrait that will be painted in oil in part 2. We're going to be working from life for the entire process. We're going to be working on a drawing on toned paper, and then we're going to be enlarging that drawing using the grid method. Once the drawing is enlarged, we will be enhancing it with acrylic washes to make a grisaille. My inspiration for this self-portrait is the self-portrait by Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun that she painted in 1782. Lebrun's self-portrait was inspired by Peter Paul Rubens' portrait of his sister-in-law Susanna London that he painted between 1622 and 1625. And you can see the similarities in these paintings, that both of them feature a hat, and they also feature like strong overhead lighting. So in my portrait, I'm also going to go with this overhead lighting and a hat. I've always loved Lebrun's self-portrait. It was very groundbreaking in its day, having a female painter paint her own copy of a famous old master's work. She was really one of the top portrait artists of her time. She painted royalty. She was most famous for painting Marie Antoinette. She was Marie Antoinette's main portrait painter. I love them both, but Elizabeth's painting is very engaging. She's looking directly at you, very bold and proud, whereas Susanna looks a little bit embarrassed. To me, she looks sort of withdrawn. She's folding her arms like this and she's sort of looking up from her hat, and to me, she looks uncomfortable. I'm wearing a shirt that I feel is a good compromise between the shirts the two women are wearing. Susanna's it kind of looks like the top of this, but with no tie, and Elizabeth's is ruffled with a tie. I'm going with a straw hat with flowers, like the painting of Elizabeth Lebrun. I'm going to have my body direction going this way, and I'm going to have one arm holding a paintbrush. And I'm deciding whether I want to torment myself and make it the left hand that's holding the paintbrush. It's a lot harder for me to paint with my non-dominant hand. I'm working on heavy paper that has been toned with a gray gesso, and I'm using graphite pencils ranging from 2H to 3B. A kneaded eraser, a chamois, a coarse paintbrush for smudging the graphite, a makeup sponge, and white Conte with a stump to blend it. I have a mirror set up on a second easel, and I have my drawing, maybe about at a 120-degree angle of each other, and I'm sort of sitting between them. I also have the added complication of recording. I had to stick my camera in there somewhere, so it's not always the best angle, and I apologize for that, but it's kind of close quarters. It's very challenging to do a self-portrait from life. You're always moving, and then you sort of move in to work on the picture, and then you're moving out and looking back at yourself, and each time it changes a bit. So you really have to keep an eye on your body posture. It's, I think, one of the more challenging things to paint. And it's also physically quite strenuous. I mean, you're sort of standing a lot and leaning a lot and trying to hold a pose. You can definitely get a stiff neck doing this. One of the nicest things about a self-portrait is convenience. You are available to paint when you're available to paint. You don't have to come up with plan B when you no-show yourself. And probably best of all, your surfaces are free. It's a great risk-free way to experiment. Stop it here. I feel like it's going to be suitable for my purpose. I've covered my drawing with a sheet of mylar. Mylar is a polyester film that is transparent and quite durable. You can trace your drawing through the mylar and then draw your grid over top of it so you don't have to ruin your drawing with a grid. The mylar is so durable that you can actually wash the surface of it and reuse it over and over again. I'm going to be basically tracing the drawing using a 2H pencil. I need a bright light on because my drawing is so softly toned with soft lines. It's kind of hard to trace through the mylar. Didn't really leave space in the original for arms. I am going to be putting hands and arms in this drawing. By adding the hands, I've elongated the composition quite a bit, so I'm going to have to adjust my grid lines accordingly. One way to check to make sure your grids are in proportion with each other is to rest both of the square edges together and run a diagonal ruler through them. The corners should meet up on both diagonal sides. You'll notice how I have two buffer edges on my larger paper. This is to keep my larger grid in proportion with my smaller grid, now that the composition has changed. The surface that I'm transferring this drawing onto is an 18 by 24 piece of paper toned with a warm yellow gesso. I'm then going to give the drawing some washes of neutral colored acrylic paint to fill out and enhance the form. So doing a transfer is pretty straightforward. You have grids and you just transfer the information over from the smaller to the larger. And we're not going too large. If you have to go really small to quite large, if there's a big difference, I suggest doing an in-between size because you'll find a lot of discrepancies. The one nice thing about doing a grid transfer is you get more familiar with your subject. So you can make a lot of changes and enhancements each time you enlarge the drawing. And you're always going to find a little bit of warping when you do this. Not every square is like perfect, and sometimes your alignment's not quite right, but you should be able to enhance the drawing before you transfer it over. I have the entire drawing transferred over, and now I'm just going to erase all of the grid lines, and I think I'm going to do a little bit of shading and highlighting just to get a sense of the volume to make sure that I've transferred it over properly. I kind of want the hat to be a bit wider, so I might incorporate that. When you use a grid to enlarge a smaller drawing, you're always going to find there's some awkwardness in the lines, and you're going to have to go over and smooth them and eyeball it. This is another opportunity to refine your drawing and make any corrections. I find at every step of this process you are still making corrections. Each time you add a bit of shading and tone, it can make another part of the drawing look a little bit off. So there's always adjusting that happens. I'm going to be going over my drawing with a bit of acrylic paint. I have some ultra matte medium, warm white, ivory black, burnt sienna, and this is a burnt sienna, ivory black, and ultra matte medium mix for throwing in some light shadow. I've gone over the face a little bit with some more pencil because I felt like I was losing some of the forms, and I still have to work on these a bit. I just used some white charcoal pastel, but I'm going to be going over it again in paint. I just turned it upside down. If you turn things upside down, sometimes things will become really apparent that don't feel quite right. Turning it upside down really helped me with figuring out the tilt of the features a bit better. They were starting to go a little off, and I think that was a function of getting into my work, trying to focus on holding still, but then I would be shifting a little bit and of course making the features move a little bit on the canvas. Stepping back and just working on it upside down helped a lot with that. This might be as far as I'm going to take this drawing. I could probably fiddle around with it forever, and it's been really helpful to work out some of the drawing and composition things. I am going to stop it here and then let it dry and transfer it onto the canvas. Thank you so much for joining me for this drawing. I hope you enjoyed this video. In part 2, we'll be transferring our larger drawing onto the painting panel using charcoal. We'll be doing a grisaille underpainting using acrylic washes, and then we'll be completing the painting using a limited palette in oil.